Hey guys, I wanted to do a special video basically talking about a topic that has come up a lot, especially with Pride Month being over now, and we're back to the norm of, everyday life not being centered around gay culture as much as it usually is during Pride Month. So I want to talk about an issue of racism and anti-blackness in the gay community because it's prevalent and it's a real thing, and no amount of people gaslighting and trying to trivialize is going to actually make it go away because it's still here and it's very prevalent, and it's something that we need to talk about a lot more, and we need to speak out about and make it a priority to inform people who don't know about it that this is a thing and it needs to be addressed and it needs to be fixed. So, anti-blackness as a concept is pretty much the idea that you are going out of your way to make life harder for black people in general, or black people in general. So you're doing things socially, you're doing things with laws and all types of stuff. Every type of facet of life is made harder for black people, and is deemed from the idea that black people are less than. That's the main concept of anti-blackness. So you see that in just about every culture. There's a line of anti-blackness that is pretty strung out for over the last, probably the last couple of centuries, honestly. And a lot of it dates back to, well, the other conversation about this would probably be colorism too, because that fits into this conversation as well. But yeah, anti-blackness, racism, all that stuff kind of comes together. It's kind of like this melting pot of, shittiness in the gay community that we have to deal with. And a lot of it comes from white supremacy, of course. That's like the root cause of a lot of these issues we have in life, as far as socially being morally bankrupt and all that stuff, and just feeling like people are less than. And anti-blackness is prevalent in many cultures that are non-white. So we could talk about anti-blackness in the Hispanic community. We could talk about anti-blackness in the Middle Eastern community. We definitely talk about anti-blackness in the Asian community. And all of these things are really, they're passed down through generations, and they become the status quo and the norm in how we go about treating black people in general. And even in the gay community, a lot of things are considered oh, well, it's my preference not to talk to black people and all stuff like that. And these preferences are based in racism and anti-blackness. Every culture just about has a war and a long history of anti-blackness, where they're so against black people, everything about black people is considered bad. And it stems from that, and it just filters over to the gay community. The gay community is not this utopian society where everybody gets along, and everybody's happy-go-lucky, and everybody loves each other. That's not the gay community that it is. That's the one that's portrayed in media, especially during Pride Month. Oh, we're just gay and happy. No, it's not. That's not like that. There's division. There's people. There's so much divisiveness and division within the gay community. It's crazy. But I think the one unifying idea is that black people in the gay community are seen as less than, and they're definitely seen as objects of fetishism, and they're considered their bodies are it's everything about black people is cool except for being black. And that's the same in the gay community. The vernacular that the gay community seems to use and pretty much gravitate towards is heavily rooted in urban black gay culture, and they take it and they run with it. I remember over last week there was an article that someone wrote. I believe his name was Philip Henry, and he wrote an article about the term "Thicke" and how it's been co-opted by white gay men on Instagram. And Thicke was a way for black people to be more body positive and accepting of bodies that are a little bit more meatier and have more thickness to them and a little more curvier than normal. It's a way to be more accepting of bodies that go against the Eurocentric idea of beauty and whatnot. And it's weird how we were trying to pretty much find a way to make ourselves feel better and feel beautiful in a way that we are made, and yet we have white people come on and colonize a word and have no idea where it comes from and just pretty much use it in the wrong context. Like I remember seeing plenty of times on Twitter, this like really super ripped ab guy was like, oh, I'm thick and lean. I'm like, what? You're not. That's not what thick is. And it's just things like that, and just like most of the vernacular and like slang and stuff, like reading and tea and shade and tins and realness, all that stuff coming from black, gay, and Latino trans and gay men back in the ball scenes of the late 80s and early 90s. And it's funny that that culture is so heavily rooted in gay culture as a whole, yet the people that created all these things are so marginalized and subjugated and ostracized in the community in which they use all the stuff from it. Like they pretty much, like vulture culture, they come in, they pick out what they want, and then they just throw away everything else, which is throw away the people that made it. And that's just, it's so terrible to have that. And just stemming away from just white people, white gays, there's like Middle Eastern gays that have an issue with black people. There's Asians definitely have a long-standing history, and I unfortunately hate that I'm gonna sing them out a little bit in this video, because every time I've approached this topic with someone that's Asian, they come with this very like sterile, well, in our culture, you know, we're very nationalist and we're very this and very, it's very like sterile, and it's like, it's almost like they're justifying it. They're not saying, oh, this is a problem. They're saying, oh, well, you know, they're just very old fashioned. They're very like nationalist and purist and all these, like these other, like all these words that like sound good on paper, but they don't necessarily, they don't hold anyone accountable at all. Like it's pretty much saying, oh, well, that's the way it is. They're just anti-black, whatever, too bad. And I hate that that's become like the culture. And these are the same people, all the other people, all the non-black people of color that are anti-black are the same people that are asking for the same type of like level of respect and dignity from white gay men, and they do the same things to black people. Like it's crazy that they would do the same thing and then not, they gaslight, they just say like it's not a big deal. It's crazy. And it's bad that in a community that's so marginalized already, the LGBT as a whole is so marginalized and hated throughout all of history, yet they do some of the most heinous things to each other as far as like how we treat each other. Like we treat each other like complete trash most of the time. And there's so much, like there's still levels of like segregation within the gay community too. Like the fact that there has to be a black gay pride tells you that there's a need for it, and the fact that there's not a lot of visibility within the quote unquote mainstream gay community, that where we have to make these other separate communities within it in order to feel like we're a part of it. And it's just terrible to have to deal with this. And it's like, I just hate that people walk around like, oh, everything's fine and dandy. And I hate that when people speak out against stuff like this, you're considered divisive and you're considered like bad. Like, oh, why are you talking about this? You're being divisive. You're being racist. Like, calling someone racist is not racist. Like, that's not even the same thing. Like, I don't know how that correlates or something. But yeah, there's anti-blackness in all of these non-white people of color. Like, it's terrible and it's demeaning, and it's way more than just putting no blacks on your Grindr profile. It becomes like a mindset. Like your attraction to people definitely deems them more worthy and more valued than other people. Like there's no way to separate the two. Someone that you don't find to be attractive or pleasing to the eyes, or like, you know, someone that you're have any type of affection to, if you don't have that for that person, you're not going to see them as worthy. And the people you don't see worthy are definitely felt that you treat them worse and like they're less than. And yeah, this topic is so huge. It's really hard to like condense it down. I might talk about this again, but yeah, the anti-blackness in the gay community is terrible, and we have to speak out about it. We have to do something about it. We have to talk about it. And these are very uncomfortable conversations, but it has to be done in order to make change and do anything worthwhile and have a better future for the gay community as a whole in the next coming decades to come. So Yeah, so that's like my little take on anti-blackness. It's shitty, it's awful, and we need to like do something about it. So, all right, thanks for watching, and hopefully you watch my next video. Thanks.